I always like to have my husband come in here and guess which palette is on which eye. Hello, welcome.
Wow.
Welcome to the guessing game.
What?
I know. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be testing out a potential eyeshadow dupe. I like to do these with a certain brand. I've been actually doing this for the past 3 palettes that they've released, I believe. The brand I'm referring to is Alter Ego, and they make dupe eyeshadow palettes for some of the most popular eyeshadow palettes out there. A lot of those palettes so far have included Natasha Denona, which is kind of cool because Natasha Denona products are not the cheapest, so it is kind of fun to see if there are dupes out there. So this new palette that they are launching today actually is Aurora. So this is the front of the palette from Alter Ego, and this is supposed to be a dupe for the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. The Sunrise palette, when it launched, I was so excited about it, and so many people were so excited about it as well. Here's what the Natasha Denona one looks on the inside. It's just a bunch of beautiful, warm sunrise tones. You can do a lot of neutrals with this, but you can also do a lot of fun purple and berry looks, which I think is cool. So we're going to be putting these to the test. I'm going to be wearing one on this eye and one on this eye, and we're going to see if they compare. Just some specs before we get into it. This Natasha Denona Sunrise palette right here retails for $65, which is cheaper than some of her other palettes just because the pan size is a little bit smaller with this one. So it is a little bit more affordable than some other palettes we've seen from her. The Aurora palette has the exact same number of shades, and this retails for $16. The packaging is a little bit different. This one has more of an acrylic outer shell, and also the mirror is very big on this one. The Alter Ego is more of a cardboard, and then there's also a mirror in here. It's just a little bit smaller. So that's kind of what we're working with. I'm going to set these side by side. I've got some similar brushes that I'm going to be using for each palette. I like to use the same kind of brush, but obviously clean ones to dip into the same shades, just so that we really don't mix the colors and we don't get confused with which formula is performing which way. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start off with my favorite shade in the palette, which is this one right here called Morgan. I just love this peachy tone for a transition shade. By the way, I did come down with a cold over the weekend, so sorry if I sound a little bit stuffy. That is why. So I'm going to take my Morphe Jaclyn Hill JH32 brush, and I'm going to take some of that. I'm going to tap off the extra, and I'm going to start to build this shade up in the crease. By the way, as always, I do like to prep my eyes, and today I use the Nars Tinted Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base. I've been raving about this for a while. I'm very familiar with how it works. All of the eyeshadows that I've ever used on top of it work really well, so this is what I wanted to use underneath both palettes to really see how both perform. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of blend this out all over the lid. I'm going to dip back into that shade a little bit and just kind of deepen it up. I really do want the crease to have the most pigment, and then once there's a little bit less product on the brush, I'm going to go ahead and bring it upward and kind of buff it in this area here and out toward the end of the brow. So far with these dupe videos that I've done with Alter Ego palettes, I have not been disappointed, so I do have high hopes for this palette. Okay, so there's that first shade of the Natasha Denona palette blended out. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the corresponding shade in the Alter Ego palette, which is this one right here called Star. So I'm going to take an equally fluffy brush, a clean brush. This is the Morphe Jaclyn Hill JH31. And I'm going to start to buff that into the crease on this eye. And again, I'm just going to start to work it in windshield wiper motions. And I'm not dipping back in yet until I feel like I need to. I'm just going to keep building, buffing, and blending. This one does seem to be blending out really nicely. All right, I'm going to go back in. I dipped back into the first shade on this eye about 3 times. So this is the second dip in to the Alter Ego palette. I'm just going to continue to kind of work that in the crease and then kind of fluff it in this area and out toward the edge. Okay, I'm just going to take a little bit more and just go ahead and kind of intensify just the crease alone. Wow, okay, yeah, those are looking very, very similar. Both blended out very nicely. I'm just going to take the other brush and just kind of blend that out a little bit more on the Natasha Denona side. Okay, I'm wanting a little bit more of a fade up to the brow. So I'm going to take the lightest matte shade, and it's called Morning in the Natasha Denona palette. And I'm actually going to take the same brush that we were just using because I only want a tiny bit of this just above the edge of the peach color to kind of help blend that up into the brow area. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a bit of that and just kind of brush it right along the edge up here. Okay, and then I'm switching to the brush we used before, and I'm going to dip into the corresponding shade in the Alter Ego palette, which is this one right here called Shine. I'm going to tap off the extra and then do the same thing on this eye, just kind of buffing it right along the edge, right underneath the brow. This is starting out so pretty. Okay, let's see, what direction do we want to go? There's definitely a lot of like warm tones in here. I'm thinking I might reach for some of the purple shades in here. I just have a lot of fun with those. Let's try this one out. Let's do Glory. I'm interested to see how the dupe shade works for this because this shade seems like it might be one that would be difficult to formulate. So I'm going to take my clean brush and dip into Glory. I'm going to tap off the extra and I'm going to start to use this to build up the outer corner right along the lash line. So I'm just kind of using pressing motions. And then once I have a little bit less product on the brush, I'm just going to take that and buff it right into the crease, blending it in with the peachy shade that we have in our transition. This is such a vibrant color. I love it. So I'm not dipping back in quite yet. I'm going to let the brush kind of do the work and kind of blend it out toward the end here. And now I'm going to go back in and take just a bit more of that Glory shade and build it up one more time. Okay, that seems to be blending really nicely. I love the shade. I'm going to go ahead and use a similar brush. This one's clean and I'm going to dip into the corresponding shade in the other palette, which is this one right here called Nova. I'm going to pick that up on the brush and I'm going to tap off the extra and let's see how this one compares. I'm going to do the same thing where I just start to build it up on the edge, and then once there's a little bit less product on it, I'm going to start to buff that into the crease a little bit. I'm doing the same exact thing where I'm just working this into the lid before I dip back into the pan. All right, now I'm going to dip back into Nova. I do feel like this one is a little bit less pigmented than the Natasha Denona one, but it doesn't mean that you can't build it up to the exact same intensity, so that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to make it look as identical as possible, and obviously I will tell you any differences that I'm noticing as we go along. So I just dip back into that shade for a third time to try to get it up to the intensity, and it is building. Like you can see that it is getting to the intensity that the Natasha Denona palette was at. It's just taking a little bit more effort. I just dipped back in again to try to deepen up that very outer portion. Okay, I still feel like it's a beautiful color, and I still feel like I was able to get very, very similar results. I'm going to take a little bit more of the Glory shade on this side and just kind of buff that in. So what I am noticing is this one's a little bit more of a vibrant purple. This one has a bit more brown in it, it seems like. So it's translating to be a little bit more burgundy, where this one's more of a vibrant cranberry. Both very similar, obviously, since this is the dupe shade for it, but there are subtle differences with that shade. Let's go ahead and take Aster, this one right here. This is one of my favorite shades in the palette as well. It's just a beautiful kind of iridescent purple with blue glitter in it. So I'm going to take that on my finger, and I'm wanting this shade to be kind of the focal point in the inner portion of the eye. So I'm going to go ahead and press that right here on the inner lid. And I'm just kind of building that up until I get the intensity that I want. I'm stopping about halfway. I do want to kind of create an ombre effect with a different shimmer shade there. So I'm just kind of building it up in this inner third mostly. I love that shade. Okay, we're going to dip into the corresponding shade, which is this one right here called Dawn. I'm going to take my finger on my left hand. Ooh, that one looks really pretty. And let's go ahead and apply this to the inner corner as well. Just taking my finger and using a pressing motion to build that. This one is definitely very buttery and it's building up nicely. There are subtle differences with these two as well. This one has almost more of a sheen than the Natasha Denona palette does. I'm going to build up a little bit more of the Aster shade from the original palette on this eye. Wow, they look very, very similar. Just gonna wipe off my finger and I'm gonna take a little bit of Poppy from this palette, which is a really pretty metallic burgundy shade, and I'm wanting to kind of put that more on the center of the lid, blending it outward into those deeper matte shades on the outer corner. So I'm just gonna take my finger, kind of layer that, and then we're gonna do the same thing with the corresponding shade, which is this one right here called Cosmic. All right, so I'm taking a little bit of Cosmic from the Alter Ego palette, and I'm just gonna do the exact same thing, pressing it in the center of the lid and then moving it outward toward those matte shades on the edge. Okay, I'm gonna go back in with a little bit of the purple shade called Aster and just kind of tap along the edge to blend those two shades together. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the shade Dawn on this eye and just tap over the edge. Okay, I want to deepen up the outer edge. I'm going to take the darkest matte shade in the Natasha Denona palette. This is called Clove. I'm going to take some of that, tap off the extra, and just press it along the edge here to deepen up the lash line a little bit. That is so pretty. I'm going to do the same thing with the corresponding shade in the Alter Ego Aurora Palette. It's this one right here called Twilight. Dip my brush into this, tap off the extra, and then just press that along the edge and a little bit into this corner here. I'm just taking the brush that we were using with the shade Glory, and I'm just kind of lightly dusting that shade a little bit higher. I didn't add any more product on the brush. And I'm going to do the same thing with the shade Nova on this eye. Just trying to do the exact same thing so we can really get as accurate of a review as possible. Okay, I'm really happy with how things are looking. I'm going to take a little bit of Laurel right here, which is a really pretty shimmery shade. And I'm going to take that on a small fluffy brush. And I'm going to start to kind of build that in the inner corner first. And then you guessed it, we're going to do a scoopity boopity. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight this inner crease here. Oh, I think that's so pretty. It's kind of a soft pinky peach shimmer. All right, I'm taking a clean brush and I'm going to go into Stellar, which is the corresponding shade in the Alter Ego Aurora palette. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to start by building up this inner corner here. And then I'm going to highlight the inner crease very gently. And I'm just going to build that up until the intensities match on both sides. I think it's pretty similar. Maybe a little bit more. Wow, that shade's like identical. I really can't tell a difference between those two. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna wipe away any fallout under the eyes. There's actually equal fallout under the eyes. There's not one that's more or less. It looks about the same on both sides. So I'm just gonna go ahead and clean up the fallout underneath the eyes. And as always, I like to take my finger and just press down the line that we created with the makeup wipe, just to make sure it's not too harsh. I love these colors. They're so pretty. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and speed through my complexion products since this video is just about the eyeshadow. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back to finish up the lower lash line, and we will see what we think about both finished eye looks. So I'll see you guys in a second. All right, so I'm back. I know I look crazy because the rest of my makeup is done, but we're gonna go ahead and finish up the eyes now. I'm gonna start off with the Natasha Denona palette, and I'm pretty sure I want to do like oranges and yellows on the lower lash line, not because that's what I would normally do, but I really want to see how many colors we can get use out of in this palette, just for the sake of this tutorial. So I'm going to take a little bit of Citrine, which is the bright yellow in this palette, and I dusted off this brush on a towel that I have in front of me. I'm going to tap off the extra. I'm looking for a mirror. Here's one. And I'm just going to start by buffing this along the entire lower lash line. And I'm going to take this color from all the way up to the lashes, and then I'm going to buff it down pretty far. And I'm also going to make sure to kind of blend out the yellow into that purple underneath right here, just to kind of blend those two together. Also, if you're wondering about anything that's on my face, besides the eyes, obviously, I will have everything linked and listed down below. All right, so I'm gonna switch that. I'm gonna take that same brush from the other side of the palette, from the other side, and then I'm just gonna dust that off, and I'm gonna do the same thing. And I'm gonna take this one right here called Sunburst, which is the corresponding color. So I'm gonna take that same shade, tap off the extra, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing where I just kind of build this up along the lower lash line. I'm just dipping back into the pan and then working this in just the way we did with the other eye over here. Similar to the purples, this one is seeming to need a little bit more of a building up to get to the exact same intensity that we have on the other eye. It's not always a deal breaker when it comes to dupe eyeshadows, but it's just something that I wanted to point out. I'm going to go into the deeper yellow matte. This is called Carnelian, and I'm actually going to take the same brush that we used with the Citrine shade on this side, and I'm wanting to just kind of start to intensify the orangey yellowness. I'm going to keep this shade right up against the lash line though, but I am layering it right on top of the yellow that we had underneath, just to kind of create like an orange to yellow ombre. Same thing on this side. I'm going to take the corresponding shade, which is this one right here called Soul, and I'm just going to run this really close to the lash line, right on top of that first yellow shade, just to kind of intensify things a little bit more on that lower lash line. Okay, I want to deepen up the outer edge with this pretty orange right here called Jasper. I'm going to take that on a small brush, tap off the extra, and I'm just going to kind of start to press that along the lower lash line, connecting it to the purple shade that we have on the top lid right here, and then just kind of blending it down. I want to keep most of this color on like the outer portion of the eye. And of course, got to do the same thing on this eye. So I'm going to take the same burnt orange shade in this one right here called Flare, tap off the extra, and I'm going to do the same thing where I start to build it up right here on the outer third. I'm going to dip back in, and I'm just building that and blending it up into the existing shadows on the outer corner here. These colors are so vibrant in both palettes, like they really are. They're so pretty. Okay, I'm going back into the Natasha Denona palette, and I'm going to take this shade right here called Awakening. I'm going to take that on a small brush. I'm going to load up the brush, and then I'm going to spray it with a little bit of MAC Fix Plus. And I'm wanting to apply this shade in the inner portion. It's like a really pretty light pink, and I just feel like it's going to tie together the top lid and then this lower lash line that's a little bit more orangey yellow. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply that right here on the lower lash line in the inner third. And then I'm going to take a very similar brush, and I'm going to dip into the corresponding shade, which is called Radiance. And I'm going to do the exact same thing where I dip it in and then spray it with a little bit of MAC Fix Plus. And we're going to go ahead and apply that in this inner third. So these two are a little bit different. It's not anything insane, but I'm just being a little bit nitpicky here. This one has a bit more of a purple shift, and this one leans more pinky peach. Obviously when they're on, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but I am noticing a slight difference in that shade on that lower lash line. I'm going to take a little bit of Agate, which is a really pretty golden color, and I'm actually going to take the brush that we were just using with the Natasha Denona palette, and I'm going to pop this in the inner corner to highlight and to connect the top lid eyeshadows with this lower lash line right here. So I'm just going to kind of make a V shape right here. I'm going to switch brushes, and I'm going to take Brilliance, which is the corresponding shade in the Aurora palette. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Just pop that in the inner corner, blending it into both the top and bottom eyeshadows. Ooh, I actually love that one in the Aurora palette. I think that's beautiful. I'm gonna see if I can build up the Agate shade to be as intense, because it seemed like for a minute this one was a little bit more. It seems like I can build it up. I'm also gonna take what's left of that color and kind of pop it right here. And then I'm gonna switch brushes and put a little bit of Brilliance along the brow bone here. My brows are wild. I really should trim them. Okay, I'm gonna take a clean brush and just kind of buff underneath the entire lower lash line on the Natasha Denona side. I'm going to take another clean brush and do the same thing on the Alter Ego side. Okay, I do think I want a little bit of the morning shade right here. I'm going to take that on a fluffy brush. And I want this to help kind of blend the lower lash line into the skin underneath the eyes. So I'm just taking a little bit of that and dusting it underneath just to kind of soften that a little bit more. I'm going to switch brushes, and I'm going to take this one right here called Shine, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on this eye. Wow, things are looking very, very similar. I think that's as many colors as I can possibly use for the specific look without making it look weird, you know? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put on some mascara. Which one should I use? Ooh, should we use my L'Oreal Burgundy Mascara? I feel like that'd be kind of pretty. Or should we just do black? Maybe I'll do burgundy on the lower lash line. And I'm going to take my Lancome Monsieur Big for the top lashes. I'm just going to use the same exact mascara on both eyes. So I'm going to do about 2 coats on the top with this mascara. Okay, so there's 2 coats of the Lancome mascara. Let's go ahead and use my L'Oreal Voluminous Burgundy Mascara for the lower lashes. I'm just going to assess the situation with the complexion. And then I'm going to spray a little MAC Fix Plus all over the skin. Use my handy fan to dry that down. Then I'm going to take my sponge and just press down any powders. Alright you guys, so that completes the makeup look. Let's take a closer look at both of the eyes. Okay, I see minor differences. Some that are a little bit worse on this side and some that are actually better in my opinion. For example, I feel like in direct comparison to the actual Natasha Denona Sunrise palette, the purples definitely are a little bit more pigmented and a little bit more burgundy. These ones are a little bit more bright on this eye right here. But with that being said, the shimmer on this eye is more intense, I feel, than this eye, which is actually something that has kind of been a common theme in all of the Alter Ego palettes that I've tried up against their originals. I've noticed that the shimmers are actually really, really nice in the Alter Ego palettes. So I really like both of them. What do you guys think? $16 versus $65. Is there a difference? And if so, is it worth the price? Do you know what I mean? In my opinion, you get a very similar effect. I'm actually very impressed by this side right here. It does take a little bit more time to build up some of the colors compared to the Natasha Denona formula. But again, this is like $16, so you save a ton of money with this one, and it just takes a little bit more time to build it up. With that being said, as always, the Natasha Denona palettes I will forever be a fan of. This is such a stunning palette, and so if you're somebody who likes more luxurious makeup, then you might want to pick up the original because the formula is very good and the blendability does show, and there is a bit more pigmentation in some of the purple tones that I noticed. Let's go ahead and swatch a couple just for fun because I wasn't able to wear every single shade. I'm going to swatch this shade right here called Day Spring, which is the beautiful gold color. Okay, that was just one swipe. This is the Natasha Denona palette. And then I'm going to take Luminary, which is the corresponding shade. And let's see how this one compares, you guys. Well, just based off of swatches, this one swatched beautifully. You can see what I'm saying about the metallics being a little bit more intense in the Alter Ego palette, which is crazy. This one does have a little bit more of a warm shift. See that? They're very similar like this, but once you flip them up, this one does turn a little bit more gold, where this one stays kind of a true bronze. So there are slight differences there, but gosh, this one's beautiful. Let's try the red shimmer right here. This one is called Phlox. So I'm going to take that one and get it swatched on my hand. So here is that one swatched across my hand. That's the Natasha Denona shade. We're going to go ahead and dip into Ray, which is the shimmery red in the Aurora palette. And let's see how that one compares. Okay, so that one's definitely a little bit more patchy as far as the first swipe goes. If I build it up and kind of go back and forth like this, it is seeming to build up. I'm going to do the same thing on this one so we can get an accurate representation. There they are together. Okay, so you can definitely see there's a little bit more of a patchiness with the Alter Ego one versus this one, but very, very similar regardless. And once it's applied on the eyes, I'm sure it would look identical. I think we used every other shade in the palette, which is crazy. I used quite a few today. So before we end, I always like to have my husband come in here and guess which palette is on which eye. Let me text him. Hello, welcome.
Wow.
Welcome to the guessing game.
What?
I know.
Wait, I think this is the best one so far.
Really?
Yeah, wait.
I always guess pretty quick.
If
Close.
you look real close,
Keep 'em
you
close.
might be able to guess.
Hi, everybody.
Oh yeah, welcome Thailand. Hello.
Oh my gosh. Is this Natasha Denona? Really?
Well, yeah, what made you guess that?
The smoothness of your scoopity boopity.
Really? The scoopity boopity gave it
honestly,
away.
that was just a lucky guess.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's very, very
Honestly,
similar.
wait, let me see that bottom color. I honestly can't even tell.
Really? But like the shimmer is actually a little better on this one, which is the Alter Ego.
It is.
Alright you guys, so that completes this video. I hope you found it to be helpful. Let me know in the comments below what you feel about both sides. What do you think about the dupe? Is it a good dupe? I personally feel like it is, and based off my husband's reaction, I feel like it definitely is. So I will have the Alter Ego website down below. If you guys want to, I actually do have a coupon code with them. It's just the code Allie. You can get an additional 10% off your entire order. I love so many of their palettes. I especially love the Goddess palette and also the Sahara palette. Just so you know, this video is not sponsored by them. They did send me this palette early. I do get PR from them. I just wanted to make that disclaimer. If you're new here, hi, my name is Allie, and I would love for you to join the family. You can do so by hitting the subscribe button. And if you're already a subscriber but you want to be notified on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, click on the bell after you subscribe and you'll get a notification every single time I post. Also, if you guys want to be a part of my Not So Secret Santa giveaways that are happening on Instagram right now, I will have everything linked and listed down below so you guys can go ahead and check it out. I hope you have an amazing day wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Love you. Bye!